All right, Lloyd Vance, we have to catch up with him. We missed him last week, but he's kind enough to join us on a Tuesday on the Boardwalk Hunt Hotline. Does a great job covering the NFL. Of course, contributing editor as well for the NFL Network. We've got about 3 hours away before the trade deadline. Do you suspect that it'll be a wild and busy next 3 hours?
Well, Q, this new regime at GM seems to want to make deals a lot more than the past. So I still think we'll probably see about 2 to 3 trades, which is a lot more than we're used to back in the old days.
Yeah, well, you're already seeing a potential move with Denver with Thomas to the Texans, multiple reports for a mid-round pick. We saw the Giants already with the house cleaning with trading away Eli Apple, had 3 penalties the other night, Snacks Harrison. Now there's talk that they're fielding calls on Odell. They're fielding calls on Collins, Jenkins. I don't believe Odell or Collins gets moved. We know Eli's not getting moved, which actually brings this up. I mean, how about Kyle Lauletta getting arrested early this morning? So I guess the clamoring of everyone wanting Eli to go to the bench, you might have to wait a little bit. That you can't make this stuff up. I mean, that's you can't. I mean, it's
crazy.
It's a joke of a
timing there.
You know what, Lloyd? I was looking at Eli was 20-something odd games over 500 2 years ago. And you look at where he's at now with this team, you can't make this stuff up. You can't. And I'm just wondering, is Shermer really over his head, or was this, misevaluation of talent, thinking that Gettleman and his hog mollies in this line would be better? They're worse. He's been sacked 33 times already. He's been sacked 31 times last year.
Yeah, Q, everybody's got a hand in this, and you definitely got to point the finger at Gettleman because, let's face it, he is the architect of this team, and I think he did overestimate the talent that he has on his team and the people that he brought in. Yes, Nate Solder was a good name coming over the Patriots, but he's a guy, they've overpaid him, and there's other people on his team that they're just not getting the job done other than Eli. And as you're saying, he is running for his life back there, sacked over 30 times and just harassed over and over again. So I do think this team will hit the reboot, and you're going to see some guys leave this team that probably in the offseason that we thought they could count on.
You know, it's pretty evident that Hugh Jackson and Todd Haley clash big time, and when at the end of the day, both get fired. I never thought Hugh Jackson was a good head coach. Todd Haley, even if you go by snippets of watching Hard Knocks, they had zero respect for each other. So right there, it wasn't going to work. First of all, is a head coaching job with the Cleveland Browns, is that an appealing job for candidates out there?
Well, Q, you got to be a young guy. You got to be a young guy that's hungry and need an opportunity because that's who they're going to have to get there. Let's face it, Jimmy Haslam, the owner there, is not going to attract a blue ribbon, blue chip type of head coaching prospect out there. It's going to have to be a young guy, an unknown guy, kind of like what the Rams did with McVay. They got lucky with him coming in there, but that's the type of guy they're going to have to bring in. But as you're saying, it seems like coaches are hired to be fired in Cleveland.
No doubt. I mean, they check off all the boxes. You alluded to young talent. You got a front office, proven front office. You got salary cap space. You got a quarterback going forward. You look at some of these other moves that we're seeing and everything going on in Oakland, and now they believe that Derek Carr is going to be the quarterback of the future, even though I don't know if his teammates wholeheartedly agree with that. I have no idea what Gruden is doing. I just don't. It makes no sense to me. It's almost as though he makes these moves and then he backtracks and then he wonders why he doesn't have a deep threat or why he doesn't have a pass rusher. I mean, I'm not going to say the game has passed him by, but he really has looked clueless this year.
Yeah, Q, I think right now he's relearning the game and reacclimating to the modern National Football League. It's just not what it was when he left 10 years ago. Yes, he's been given that big contract. He's been empowered to be the man in Oakland. But so far, it's just been a team in shambles. And let's face it, they're probably one of the worst teams out there, along with the Niners. So, they're probably going to head into the offseason and have a game plan with all these draft picks. So hopefully McKenzie and Gruden can get on the same page and make a good deal. But I think they are stuck with Carr because he's got that big contract, and I just don't see him leaving anytime soon.
No, either do I. You look around the league, and I think the Eagles, I'm not going to necessarily say they got their swag back, their mojo back, but they went into London. They won a game that they needed to win. I know the defense hasn't been as stout as we've seen, particularly like we saw last year, but I still think they're going to need another weapon, another wide receiver, someone to potentially stretch the field for Carson Wentz. And that line's got to play better because he's been under duress and he's taken a lot of hits. I mean, I don't think they've necessarily turned a full corner, but the fact that they got out of there going into the bye and they upped their record up to 500 to 4-4, and they've got games against their divisional opponents coming up. They're going to have to earn their way into the playoffs this year.
They totally are, and they got the bullseye on their back, and I think they're finally learning. You know what? Last year is gone. We got to find new, inventive ways to win games, and they're trying to be a physical team. I think they ran the ball with a little bit more efficiency over in London. And let's face it, the Jaguars are a team that are going in the opposite direction, and the Eagles took advantage of that. It was a sloppy game at first, but they got it together, got the win, as you're saying, and they do have 5 divisional games coming up that are going to tell the story of the season. Right now, the Redskins are very much ahead of them, but the Eagles play them twice in the next coming weeks to the end of the season. So, you know, a lot of season left, and I'm still not sold on the Redskins. Yes, they're playing physical football, and their defense looks good, but that NFC East is wide open other than the Giants.
Yeah, and conversely, how about Jacksonville? I mean, I'm tired of hearing about this defense. It's amazing. Ramsey, all of a sudden, you lose a couple games. He doesn't say anything. I mean, Jacksonville, their quarterback's under fire. Their head coach is under fire. Their defense hasn't played particularly well. I understand their secondary is very thin with all these injuries, and you had to implement some rookies. But they're not the Jag team that we saw last year.
Yeah, another team that we kind of overestimated based on last year's results. But last year, 10-6, and yes, they dominated the Steelers when they played them in the regular season and in the playoffs. But this team has a lot of deficiencies in terms of the quarterback position. Bortles is a guy you just can't count on when the game's on the line. They lose Fournette in terms of injuries, and the receivers just aren't stepping up. So a lot of problems all over that team, and they're seeing the Houston Texans ascending at the same time, who've won 5 straight.
What did you make of what transpired in the Green Bay and the Rams game? I mean, the Rams showed me that they can run the ball when they need to, even though Green Bay was able to move the ball here and there. Late when the Rams had to, they ran the ball down Green Bay's throat with Gurley. But the whole Montgomery mistake decision, I mean, you're a player of Montgomery stature. You've been in the league long enough. You have to understand with 2 and some change to go, you have a generational quarterback in Aaron Rodgers. There's absolutely no way you take that ball out. You have to just take a knee in the end zone. Obviously, he runs it out. He fumbles the ball. The Rams basically milk the clock, and they go on to win the game. And then afterwards, there were some reports that he did it. He went rogue because he was ticked off that he was pulled a series, and they haven't really been implementing him in the offense. I mean, if you're Green Bay and you're McCarthy, how do you deal with Montgomery? And, you know, to me, that's a devastating loss for Green Bay.
Yeah, Q, you know, this team was right there on the doorstep of achieving one of the bigger upsets of the season. The Rams undefeated, and they hung right with them. They started running the ball with efficiency with Aaron Jones, who was getting the looks because, let's face it, he runs harder than Ty Montgomery, and he has the ball security. And then defensively, they were getting after Goff with the sacks, and that defense looked real good. It was unfortunate that Rodgers did not get that last opportunity. Mike McCarthy is going to have to pull that locker room together. Right now, they have guys at each other's throats. And Ty Montgomery, he has to sit with them and say, look, we cannot have you making these types of decisions. I think he was just trying to make a play. I don't know if there was a lot of animosity involved. He was just probably trying to make up for something that he didn't do right earlier in the game, but it was a wrong time to do something like that. And now the Packers have to go to New England in a very tough game.
It's going to be a huge game. We saw New England had to fight a little bit there against Buffalo, but Buffalo's not a very good football team. And typically New England, I mean, they just own, at least Brady does, owns the Bills. They're going to run away with their 12-13 games in the in the AFC. So, I'm thinking about some of these things too. If with the trade deadline, listen, I think there are teams out there. What do you think with the Tampa Bay situation? You've got a quarterback that I think right now you can label a bust. You've got a head coach that might be fired at the end of the year. They seem to play better. They respond to a veteran backup, a journeyman quarterback in Fitzpatrick. And then you've got the Deshaun Jackson situation. So if you're the Eagles, if you think you can pry him away and not give up a substantial amount, I mean, think about this. Would you trade Nick Foles to Tampa Bay for Deshaun Jackson?
Wow. You know, that definitely, I think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers should listen if they make that call. Because let's face it, Foles is not playing anytime soon for the Eagles, and Wentz seems to be rounding into shape. And Deshaun Jackson's still explosive player, leads one of the top guys in the NFL with 20-yard plus catches. And Fitzpatrick, he's making him look good. So it seems like Jameis is not the future there. Team kind of in flux. You're going to probably see Dirk Cutter let go at the end of the season, and then Lick their general manager. He's going to start moving along with some new players. So, you know, if they could get him away for Foles or even a fourth-round draft pick, why not make that call? I know Howie Roseman, a guy who's very aggressive in terms of making trades. He's going to be making a lot of calls up until 4 o'clock today.
Oh, no doubt. And if you're Tampa Bay, God knows what's going to happen with Jameis Winston, because he just can't lead them. See, if I'm also a team that's quarterback hungry, I would also call New Orleans up about Teddy Bridgewater, because this is just me. I think they're more inclined to have that backup, that kid that basically can do everything, as Drew Brees' I don't want to say heir apparent, but at least backup for the time being, because Brees doesn't seem to be slowing down.
Yeah, Taysom Smith is the kid. He's playing special teams. He's playing all over the place. And Teddy Bridgewater is on a 1-year deal down there in New Orleans, so he's going to be available at the end of the season no matter what. They're not going to give him a new contract. So, yeah, why not make a call, try to make a trade for him? Some of these teams are quarterback needy. You talked about the Jaguars. They're a team that should probably be definitely calling them.
Does Le'Veon Bell get moved? Does he get traded?
Now, I don't think he's going to report until after the deadline passes, and even if he does come in, you have to wonder about, is he going to be in football shape? Is he going to be ready to go? And let's face it, the way James Conner is playing, he's on a pace for over 1,200 yards, and he's scoring football effectively. The Steelers right now are content with Conner, but I think Bell eventually comes in, and we see how that drama plays out.
Right now, NFC, more balanced team, better equipped to make a deeper run in the playoffs, the Saints or the Rams? Or you can give me a dark horse.
Yeah, well, we're going to find out this weekend when they play each other. But I think right now I'll go with the Rams. Their defense with Aaron Donald, the way he is just collapsing in the pocket, is just playing great. Saints defense has come on recently. They're playing a lot more aggressive. They look good in shutting down the Vikings the other night in an efficient game. So it should be a good game when these two teams lock arms. But right now I think the Rams are the cream of the crop.
And I still believe Kansas City is the most complete team. I think Kansas City is the best team in football. The more I watch Mahomes play, the more I believe this kid's going to be an MVP sooner rather than later.
Yeah, and don't forget about that defense is finally rounded in shape. They got a lot of pressure on Denver's quarterbacks, and it's going to be fun. We keep talking about Week 11. Let's see if they both can get there to Mexico City and have great records.
All right, I know you're probably checking your phone nonstop. You're probably inundated with a lot of stuff. I appreciate a couple moments. We'll talk next week, pal.
All right, Q. Thanks for having me on.
All right, you got it. Lloyd Vance, always good to check in with him.